Okay, on to happier news here. Recently, there was a press event for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Microsoft's big game for December. Um, I've seen trailers, little else. But Tom, you actually went to a press event. I believe you went hands-on with the game, did you not?
Yes, I had to go on the PC version. Well, it was it was a fairly extensive demo actually. It's sort of a three-parter, and there's people's previews and are out already. And for DF coverage, we couldn't really do too much with it in terms of a dedicated video because we couldn't get our own capture. But we do have B-roll, which I've supplied Oliver here. Yeah, interesting demo. Machine Games at the helm. The setting is, we're all familiar with where it is. It's between the first and third films, Raiders, and what was the third film in the Indiana Jones
Last
arc?
Crusade.
Last
Last
Crusade.
Crusade, yeah. So we're going back to 1930s, and Machine Games have done a great job of recreating so much of that world, I think. That's the number one positive I will say about it. It's an adventure game. It's not in the tradition of what they've worked on in previous years, a shooter or FPS necessarily. It's really an adventure game in first person. And with that comes a kind of, it's closer to Hitman, I'd say, than most of their earlier output, in that you're depending on finding clues, you're going in stealth, you're swapping clothes with like Nazi soldiers and other people around, and trying to get to the sort of mission objective that way, rather than going guns blazing. And this game tends to be quite punitive if you do go all guns blazing as well. So it's generally not advised. I played on a PC. There was no expenses spared on that. It was I've got what was listed here. It was an i9, 4900K RTX 4090. They pretty much whacked all the settings up to maximum or supreme, as they call it in their settings menu parlance. And the only thing I could not see, and they were very specific about this, they did not want us to see path tracing enabled. The build was still work in progress, very much so, and they just said there's some features that are not working, and there were some bugs and glitches from it being an early build as well. The game is out on the 9th of December, so there's a bit of time to go, but it is, yeah, I was impressed. It was shaping up quite nicely. There were a few bugs and oddities here and there, but I think the highlight for me was really going back to that thing of being very authentic to the films. You've got three specific areas. There's the museum that Indiana Jones works at with his sort of tie and collar, and every single artifact that they've collected at the museum is all beautifully exhibited, and the materials and every small detail in these like urns and sculptures is like chiseled out so nicely by the developer here, and it shines. Then you move to a second stage, which is the Vatican, sort of a castle area, and you've got these great like cobblestone surfaces, dark lighting, lots of spotlights shining in different directions that cast shadows. And here you really get a sense of the stealth part of the game and how to proceed very, very gradually through the stage and not alert attention from the guards. Great AI usage, and yeah, there's a real game building around that concept that works. And the third bit was in Egypt, Gizeh, which puts you right near the Nile, near the pyramids. And this is where it really introduces a new style of gameplay to machine games, which is a completely open format. You're free to go in any direction and conquer objectives in any way you choose. There's about 5 or 6 areas. You're hunting for clues, you're swapping costumes with people you encounter, and it's a real departure from what we're used to from that studio. It's a very big open world concept area that kind of pays off if you like look close and explore a bit. So yeah, very well executed, I think, so far. But I think the only other thing I've got to say is that the global illumination in this game is top tier. Really, I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly sure they're using some ray tracing. We'll have to see. It's not the path tracing option, but it is sort of a ray traced approach. And I'm wondering if that'll make it to the consoles as well, since it seems so entrenched in the game's visual design. It's a really gorgeous looking sort of outfit overall, I think.
Interesting. I've got a question for you, which is, I'm kind of seeing that there's a lot of DNA from the movies in here, but the movies also had like pretty spectacular set pieces.
Yeah,
And I'm just sort of cycling through the footage here. I'm not seeing any of that so far. Is it actually quite a slower paced game?
quite slow paced, but that could be due to the sample that they showed us.
Right.
Like
Okay.
in some of the might have been Gamescom or E3 trailers, they showed some more set piecey moments. I don't. We're not seeing anything quite like Uncharted set pieces where it's in game, sort of very memorable, like climbing up through a bus on the side of a cliffside or what have you. But yeah, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. It does seem quite slow and methodical in terms of the general gameplay beats of it. And yeah, it was a surprise to me because I was expecting a little bit more, action, but it may build up to that. It may climax to that.
Okay. John, you're taking a look at this footage, right? Any thoughts?
Oh yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm as a big fan of machine games and before that Starbreeze. To me, I see a lot of this feels like sort of an evolution of what they did back in the day with the Riddick games, which also
Yes.
sort of had this more open-ended stealth approach. There was definitely scenes where you're essentially free to wander around the prison, talk to people, and complete objectives in a slightly different way. This just seems like a bigger take on that, infused with Indiana Jones. And as a fan of this series, I'm very excited by that. I was especially impressed with the. I feel like the dialogue, the voice acting, everything. It actually very successfully nails the feel of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, right? Like he's like it's not him, obviously you can tell it's not, but it
Yeah,
sounds suitably like what you think of Indiana Jones
it's
or Harrison
Troy
Ford in
Baker.
the 80s, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Troy Baker. He's doing it doesn't sound like typical Troy Baker,
no,
which is
no,
to say he's just showing off his range there and it really
Okay.
works. I'm happy with that. I am curious. I think this is the way. This was a good idea, rather than trying to make this like an Uncharted style game, because Uncharted always got compared to Indiana Jones. Uh, I'm not sure that machine games could really match the spectacle of those types of scenes that Naughty Dog does, just because the sheer cost of making that stuff, the level that you have to hit. Uh, it doesn't really make sense to be directly compared to that. And instead, they've leveraged what they do very well and very differently than what something like Naughty Dog does. And I think that's
yeah,
going to pay off handsomely here with something that looks really, really interesting and fun. I mean,
yeah.
this
Absolutely.
is high on my list of excitement for titles.
Yeah, absolutely. It's playing to their own strengths, and
Exactly.
a lot of the staff on the Riddick game are actually returning for this, from what I've been reading around. So, yeah, that DNA is all over it. Yeah, they've really. I appreciate bold steps like this. I don't think they. Yeah, well, they could easily fit the mold of Uncharted or the new rebooted Tomb Raider style games, but they've really gone for a different route, and I think they've picked apart what makes the films tick and how those films sort of play out. And it really isn't like an action packed roller coaster. It's a little bit, there's a lot of looking for clues inside like old tombs and things like that. So there's a couple of nice touches in here as well, though. Like they've got a HUD basically that's built in game. Like when you look down at your map, you're actually looking down at a map down, and you see yourself as a cursor walking around this in-game sort of object, and then you look up again and it's gone. Stuff like that I think works really well. yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in this. I'm looking forward to seeing it come out.
It's also a glimpse at modern id Tech, right? Since
Yes.
they've developed this alongside id Software, as id Software continues to work on Doom: The Dark Ages. So presumably they are indeed leveraging the latest in id Tech here, though with their own flavor. So that's always exciting to see. Though obviously very different sort of game.
Yeah. Might be interesting to just rattle off a few things that were in the settings menu. You're getting upscaling with native TAA and DLSS in there. Super resolution, DLSS super resolution's in there. DLSS reconstruction, frame gen, and there's 2 settings in there for static resolution scaling and dynamic resolution scaling. So there's some good flexibility in there, but there was no sign of FSR or XeSS or anything like that.
Huh.
But again, early build as well, so they could come around.
It may well be the case that for a software-based solution, and Machine Games may simply be quite happy with their own software-based solution,
which traditionally was quite good.
Yeah, so just have to wait and see there. But yeah, certainly looking really pretty fantastic here. I'm looking forward to seeing the final game, and it is kind of nice / surprising that it isn't just like a first-person Uncharted, because Uncharted's kind of been done at this point. So to see something different and hopefully something a little more fresh. So yeah, interesting stuff. The full path tracing, though, obviously,
yeah,
Alex is going to be all over that.
Same.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, John?
I guess one thing I was trying to maybe you could. It's hard to tell from this footage, but I'm seeing essentially virtually zero pop-in, which made me wonder if they're using some sort of like virtualized geometry system, something kind of like a nanite, or what Remedy was doing with Alan Wake and their engine. You know what I mean? Like, did you actually notice like visible pop-in or LODs happening? So
not so much.
I'm really not seeing anything in this footage. That huge, the Egyptian area.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Right? Like, it's very, very geometrically dense, yet there's no like visible like LOD popping, which is
the only thing
promising.
There was no pop-in, well, very visible pop-in of geometry, but there was shadow stuff. Sort of. It was obviously popping in and filtering quite close.
So just typical cascaded shadow maps.
Yeah, it was, and
Totally
it was especially noticeable around the museum area at the start. But hey, it was still quite an early build as well.
Giza. Okay. I like it. I like how you say Giza. I'm just thinking of a couple of geezers strolling in to get a kebab after a night of drinking.
A what?
What?
Kebab.
I just assumed that's the British way to say kebab.
No, it's a kebab.
Would you care to? Oh, okay. So you've enlightened me.
Okay,
it just felt natural.
I do want a kebab though.
I would love a kebab.
Whatever those are.
Yeah,
kebab. Kebab.
I'm game for it. Okay, so Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I guess it's going to be the last big game that we're going to be covering this year in terms of the AAA fare, and we'll be all over it.